Welcome back to today's Teens podcast. My name is Meisha Watson, and you're probably expecting to hear from our host, Chris Chase. But today's guests are from an organization that is very close to my heart, so I had to borrow the mic for today. We have three guests stopping by the pod from Worldvision Canada, an organization that helps the most vulnerable children overcome poverty and experience the fullness of life. I couldn't think of a better sponsor for today's Teens Conference. And so today we have three fantastic guests, and we're kicking off with our very first guest, Dave Morehouse, who's a strategic advisor for church and Christian partnerships over at Worldvision Canada. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Wow, this is a new experience for me. So thank you, Meisha, for the warm welcome.
Oh, I'm just so glad to have you here. We've gotten a chance to know each other over the last 2 days. And I'm like,
Yes.
This is going to be so much fun. We're going to have great conversations. I know myself, I have great experience over at World Vision and specifically the 30-hour famine. And so today I would just love for you to share about the 30-hour famine as you are a partner with today's Teens Conference. And we're just so believing for what you do. And so my first question, first of all, is where are you? Where in the world are you? So people can get an idea of all that.
Okay, so I'm on the best part of Canada. I don't want to offend anybody, but it's the East Coast, and actually we're in what's called the hub city of Atlantic Canada. So I'm in Moncton, New Brunswick.
All right. Isn't Magnetic Hill? That's a thing, right?
Oh,
Magnetic
there
Hill.
you go.
Yeah, I know
The
East Coast.
Magnetic Hill. And if you haven't experienced that, please come. Don't just drive through New Brunswick and go to PEI. Please, please stop in Moncton and do the Magnetic Hill.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I think I had my very first, it was like a very specific kind of creme brulee one time when I was out there. And I was like,
Oh.
they do things different out here. They're not afraid to mix it up. Like, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
the East Coast. I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
And
Okay, awesome.
and one other thing about Moncton. Moncton right now, this past year, was the fastest growing city per capita in all of Canada because we are
Ooh.
experiencing, the immigration dynamics and all that, and it's becoming a very diverse city. So we're
I
really
love it.
excited about that.
I love it. I felt so welcome over there on the East Coast. I just feel like people remember me too. They're like, hey, didn't you go
Yeah,
to school here? I'm
we
like, I
know.
did
Right?
a long time ago. Yeah. It's so cool. Awesome. Well, I love to kind of get to know where in the world you are. And, with
Mm.
World Vision, it's literally all about the global impact. So I would love to hear about the 30-hour famine. 30-hour famine has been around for ages. I mean, I was a part of it when I was a teenager. But World Vision Canada is reigniting it and really
Mm.
wanting to spread the message and get people involved. And so why is World Vision reignited 30-hour famine and why now? Why now?
Really, for a couple of reasons, and I'm glad you kind of talked about it. Feels like it's been around for a long time, and I think that we started having conversations around our church engagement team at World Vision Canada, and we've recognized, like the last 10 years, there's just been a lot of change for all organizations, including World Vision Canada. And sometimes I think in the midst of all the change, to do the new things and the good things like that, we sometimes can be, and I won't say this kindly, but we might sometimes throw some babies out with the bathwater, to use that old phrase. And we've been talking to other youth leadership, such as youth workers community. I think of people like Jeremy and whatnot, who just sort of raised it with us and started asking the question over the last couple of years with us to say, I remember doing 30-hour famine when I was a teen. And I know we were talking yesterday and you had that experience,
Yeah.
right? And I thought, well, why don't we start it once again? In fact, we've kept 30-hour famine at World Vision on our book, so to speak. You can go to our website and you can click in and say search 30-hour famine, and it's there. But it's not been one of our sort of what we call channels that we have been promoting heavily. In fact, we barely promoted it all last year, and we still had just some youth groups and just do it on their own, and they still raised I think $50,000 or $60,000 last year, and this is with zero sort of promotion and engagement and raising it. And so we decided, and sort of it's been the coming together of sort of two things. We sort of thought, well, why don't we reignite 30-hour famine? Because right now there's a new campaign. World Vision is partnering with all the World Visions around the world and other agencies. It's called the Enough campaign. And it's kind of like the idea that there's enough food for every child to have a wonderful childhood and a nutritious childhood. And And this is a huge global campaign that World Vision's involved in. And then, so we started to put the two together. Well, if there's this sort of, there's enough food, let's end world hunger. Let's really step into this. And then, 30-hour famine's a great fit, because, the idea is, let's challenge the young people to be part of that experience. Now, I almost feel like I want to go to the next question, but I want to kind of give myself a breath. So do you want to kind of?
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that. I was literally like, tell me more, because I'm looking at it thinking this is a great opportunity for youth to get involved, and an opportunity for youth pastors to say, well, I'm not doing this alone. I think a lot of times when it comes to having to take on these big events, people are like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do here? Like, how do I get started? And I think even for myself, like I started with 30-hour famine. I was 14. So I didn't really know what it took to do an event like that. And so for like, what does it take? Like, what kind of like mentality does a youth pastor need, or a youth volunteer? Because a lot of youth pastors are volunteer and don't have a ton of time. Like, what does it take?
Well, I think I know that we're going to be bringing on some other leadership to kind of get more in the details, and I know you explore that with them. But I just sort of want to talk about it maybe more from just why do it? Like, just why do it? Yeah. And I think of Simon Sinek's book called "Start with the Why." So let me just talk to the youth leaders. Say, why does this matter about doing a 30-hour famine and making it part of your, say, youth ministry experience? And this is where I'm going to kind of just go off here for a minute with you. So because my mind sort of goes in 3 or 4 different directions.
All good.
Well, first of all, I think especially for youth, teenagers, in that time of emerging, because they're just starting to emerge and they want to have different experiences. And we know sometimes they experience things that maybe we go, maybe that's not where you should be headed. So I think sometimes as a youth leader, we're wanting to say, let's give you challenging experiences that are transformational for you. It's a transformational experience. And I mean, you can think back to your teenage where you had certain experiences, and they really did broaden your worldview. They maybe even changed, where you were headed. They helped you reshape things. Well, I really believe 30-hour famine is one of those experiences, because again, for most, middle class or upper middle class North Americans, the idea of going without food for, 30 hours is almost incomprehensible. And I have to admit, I know in our 30-hour famine model now, we'll say, if and I want to be very respectful of this, if there are real dietary or health issues, there are other things you can, fast from, put away. But I want to say that I want to go old school for a moment, because, hey, look at my hair. I still think that for the majority of young people, I look at them and go, you know what? You could experience a 30-hour famine and it's not going to hurt you. You're not going to suffer. I mean, you're going to suffer a little bit, which is actually that identification. Actually, I'm looking here at my other, screen here. And right now, like in the world, there's 45 million children that suffer from wasting. There's a total of almost 800 million people in the world, including children, that are, food insecure on a daily basis. That means you wake up in the morning and you don't know if you're going to eat that day. And I mean, most of us can't even comprehend that experience. What I remember I've done, when I was a pastor at church, I just recently retired from pastoring, and we got doing 30-hour famines, for a number of years. It was amazing to watch the young people all of a sudden, just for a moment, and it was just a micro moment in that 30 hours to kind of go, wow, this is what some children experience on a week by week, month by month, year by year experience. So all of a sudden it creates an empathy with the poorest people of the world, which from a Christian point of view, I think of Matthew 25, where Jesus gives the parable, I was hungry, I was naked, I was sick, because we have a tendency in our, again, I hate to say this, but our middle classness, where we can just kind of ignore the plight of the poorest of the poor. And yet our faith calls us to go out to the poorest of the poor. That's where Jesus, I think, wants us to be. And and then I think on top of that, it's a very not just a sort of engaging experience, but it's an empowering experience, because I think sometimes we look at the world with all its complexity, and when you start throwing numbers like nearly 1 billion people are still food insecure, yeah, like that's like how many countries of Canada? That's like 20 countries of Canada. I mean, imagine all Canada food insecure, but multiply
Yeah.
that 20 times. I mean,
Yeah.
we just can't. I can't put my
Can't
head
even
around that.
fathom it. Like that's the
Yeah, I
thing. And
can't.
like,
It's like looking at the
yeah,
ocean and say how much water's out there. I mean, we just can't fathom it. So
yeah,
there's sometimes I think a tendency of helplessness where
yes.
people say, "Well, how do I make a difference?" Well,
And
all
that's
of a
actually
sudden,
what I
when
wanted to ask was
yeah,
about that was, you talk about like it's this transformation experience that youth get to experience. Like this is something that can transform them as people and them as disciples of Jesus. Like here's how we can do something that can really make a change in the world. My question is like while we do this great exciting experience, what kind of an impact does it actually have? Like we're doing fundraising, we're doing this event, like how does it actually make an impact to the hungriest of the world?
so because right now in this coming year, we're having what we're calling the 100 Church Challenge. So we want to at least activate 100 church, youth groups or youth ministries. All the money that's going to be raised will go into this bigger pot of money that's being raised to really impact the most vulnerable countries right now and help provide food security, both in immediate food delivery to these countries, but also in what we call more long-term developmental, like help them know how to do proper agriculture, help them to give them seeds, help them to and so where World Vision works, they work in communities where they'll say, okay, we're going to help you really improve your agricultural and food security in this area. And most times World Vision is in a area for at least 15 years, and they sort of have these goals that they say we're going to provide this sort of support and development, because
Mm,
it isn't just a handout, it really is a hand up, or a step up, so that the community understands, all right, how do we really sustain ourselves, not just
yeah,
how do we get through another day, even though that survival thing is also sometimes part of the journey of helping them.
of
and
course.
and and again, I think um the whole goal is we're going to do something in this moment that we can say, wow, our youth group actually stepped into this whole global food insecurity issue, this hunger issue, and we did our part. Like, because again, it's going to require so many partners and so many
Yeah.
different people, but rather than the youth sort of like just bouncing around and like all of a sudden you pause and go, but what can I do, and how, and then what can we do together as a youth group and make an impact. And I do want to say one other thing, just as a pastor, because I've seen this, and you're probably going to hear some stories with the two youth leaders who were part of my church experience, that it really is like I always think about that quote, and I can't remember who it is, so I'm just going to sort of say it randomly here. But the idea is that it only takes a few dedicated people to make a big change in the world. Like sometimes we think it's got to be a massive millions of people, but really it just takes a few dedicated people. That it's like salt. Jesus says, "Be salt of the earth." It flavors everything. And one of the things we really did with our 30-hour famine is we really empowered the youth to say, this is your program. And in fact, I ran this program for a number of years called Next Generation Leader. And so we sort of selected these high school students who wanted to be part of not just a youth ministry event on a Friday night or Saturday, Sunday night or Wednesday night or whatever night you do
Yeah.
it, but we wanted a sort of a leadership development for those who want to sort of step up their game. So it was part of our discipleship efforts.
Wow.
And and so every year we would say, okay, what's your leadership project that you are going to run? You're going to learn to work together, and you're going to deal with frustrations and planning and communications, and you're going to think like a leader. Like, how do you move people from here to here in an event? And often they would do the 30-hour famine. It was one of their
Wow.
core experiences. And it's
Wow.
amazing to watch the impact that had on what we would call the rest of the church, both kids below them would go, oh, wow, someday I'm gonna run the 30-hour famine. So the little kids were looking up to these teenagers, but then really it was a real encouragement and motivator to the rest of the adults to say, look, here are young people that aren't just, I'm raising money to go to Walt Disney, and nothing wrong with Walt Disney. But it's different when you got young people that are saying, we care about hunger. We want to make a difference in this world where there's poverty, and let's make a difference. So
Man, that is
it was really, it was, I'll be honest, I'm totally sold on it. And this is one of the reasons why when I showed up to Worldvision, I said, why aren't we doing 30-hour famine? Let's reignite this. Let's torch this baby.
I hear you. I'm ignited myself. I'm super pumped. I'm like, when do we get started? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to say thank you so much, Dave. Like, is there any lasting thoughts you have that you want to leave with youth pastors specifically about the 30-hour famine? Like, I'm not sure where we're at on the 100 level, but we're going to get there, maybe over the 100 churches.
Well, here's my dream.
What lasting word do you have? What is your dream? I love that.
Here's my dream. Like, I do think, I like the idea of, that we're reigniting like that spark, right? And I'm going to show my age. I used to go to camps, and we used to stand around the campfire and we'd sing that little song. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. That was one of our cool songs. I
like it. Never had it
50 years ago. Okay. So I apologize for everyone listening to me sing there. But the point is, it does just take a spark to get a fire going. And I do think, and this is kind of, if I was dreaming in 8K right now, I'd be thinking, wouldn't it be wild if at the Today's Teens Conference on February 22nd, that, 15, 20, 25 youth leaders speak to and we're going to give them the opportunity to sign up that day. And they say, you know what, we're going to do this. And that, again, catalyzes, that creates the beginning of a movement. And my dream would be, we could look back at 2025 and this conversation that we're starting right now, which is part of the sparking of it. And we could say, wow, maybe 3 or 4 years from now, we're going to have 1,000 youth groups across Canada doing 30-hour famine again. And again, I know that Worldvision's trying to upgrade it, and there's material and there's all these supports for it. So you'll learn all about that, or you can just go to World Vision Canada and search 30-hour famine and start that journey yourself. So, I mean, I just think, wow, let's be part of the things that Jesus said mattered. And I think one of the things he said that marks people who belong to the kingdom of God is we help the poor. We walk beside them.
So good. So good. Thank you, Dave.
Wow,
man,
this is exciting.
Pumped. I'm excited. I can't wait to talk to now 2 people who were part of your church community as well. So we're going to do that. Thank you so much for stopping by. I look forward to chatting with you soon. I mean, when I'm coming on the East Coast, I'll make sure to come by and say hi.
Please do.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
It is time for part 2 of our conversation with Worldvision Canada. Now we have 2, I want to say mentees, people who have got to be underneath the leadership of Dave. And I just want to have lots of questions for you guys because honestly, this is going to be so much fun. I haven't had an opportunity to really talk about the 30-hour famine since I did the 30-hour famine as a youth, which was, like a minute ago, not that long ago, we'll just say. But I'm excited because I absolutely love it. It means a lot to me. And so I'm excited to kind of have a nostalgic experience as well and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. So let's have some fun. First, I want to introduce everybody. We've got Julianna over here and we've got Lydia, both served as next gen leaders at the Journey Church in Moncton, New Brunswick. Did I get that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, I want to start over here with Julianna. Big question for you. For churches and youth groups who want to participate in the 30-hour famine, what was your experience as a leader? What would you say was like, okay, this is what it was like for me?
Yeah, so I have 2 experiences as a leader. I have the experience of when I was in high school and I was given the opportunity to lead within the 30-hour famine. And for me, that experience was the first time I was given an opportunity to really lead, to be given permission to try things, to just, experience what it means to be a leader and experience some of the tensions of being the primary leader of an event. That was the first time I had that opportunity, and to work within a team of my peers as well. And more recently, as the youth pastor at the Journey Church, being the leader overseeing the high school students now doing this, and getting to oversee Lydia's group leading this, it's really cool to watch them now experience that tension and discover their own giftings and where they thrive as a leader, where their weaknesses are, and just really leaning into that experience and seeing them just take such great steps in their own leadership journey, but also their faith journey along with it.
Wow. So you would say that 30 Hour Famine is an opportunity for student leaders to really step up in their giftings?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Wow. How do you encourage them? I mean, you mentioned you know, this is an opportunity for me to step up as a youth and say, I'm going to be a leader. This is what it's like. How did you, how did you feel encouraged? I should say, how did you feel motivated? But also, how do you motivate youth into leadership for this event?
Yeah, so in our church at the Journey Church, Dave, when he was the lead pastor there, created a ministry called Next Generation Leaders. And so there is a culture of equipping and giving high school students opportunities to lead and try things. So it's built right into the DNA of our church at this point. And so many of our youth are actually just really excited about the idea. Some of them are a little apprehensive about certain aspects of leadership, especially those who may be nervous about speaking publicly. That's always a bit of a tension, but so many of them are willing to still try it. I'm blown away every year by how many high school students are willing to try something new and step out of their comfort zone. Yeah. And I think we've created a pretty incredible culture of, you don't have to get it right. You don't have to achieve perfection. The fact that you're willing to try it is huge. And you can't be good at something the first time, and that's okay. And so it's really a cultural thing within our church at this point. And Dave Morehouse's leadership for 37 years is a huge part of that.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And you know what? Like, this is why it's important to have two parts of this interview, is because with Dave there, he's actually passed the torch on to you guys. And now you get the opportunity, literally with this event, with this mission, to then pass the torch onto new student leaders. Like, that's amazing. Like, it's unfortunately these days sometimes unheard of to actually be able to pass it all the way on. But so exciting to hear this from your point of view. Lydia, I have the same question for you. For you, it was literally last year as well, you had the opportunity to mentor and lead a group. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, no, well, I've experienced two 30-hour famines. One when I was, I believe, in grade 6 as just one of the members participating in it. And then in grade 12, getting to then lead and take on a 30-hour famine. And each time it was such an exciting experience to just see the differences and see how I can learn and grow from each experience. I know for leading in grade 12, just working with Worldvision, I got to see so much and learn so much, especially they had so many resources and videos, and I was able to showcase that and bring that to the group of students I led through the 30-hour famine, and just give everyone the opportunity to really learn about what it means to deal with world hunger and what it means to go hungry. We also got to reflect on different verses in the Bible, and it challenged a lot of us in the way we view faith, and the way we view faith in the sense of our lives as we are content and we have food and we have shelter and these different things, and just gave me such a respect for faith around the world and the faith of those who struggle with world hunger. So I found the 30-hour famine just an opportunity to grow as a leader and to also grow in my faith and grow as a person, which is really cool that I got this opportunity as a student and as a student leader. And I think it's definitely something that many people are going to want to participate in both those areas.
Wow, that's so good. Yeah, I hear you. I'm excited. I'm like, okay, I hear you. You're getting the opportunity to grow in so many different ways, even though it's nerve-wracking to be like, okay, you're the leader now. You got the chance to do that. So cool. You did speak about resources, that Worldvision was able to provide a lot of resources for you to do it. I think that's one of the things a lot of times with youth pastors and youth volunteer leaders is we have so much stuff going on all week. And so to collect resources or create posters or to whatever it is, thankfully you don't have to order pizza because there's no food. But getting all that stuff together is a lot of work. And so, Julianna, can you speak a little bit to what is required to run the event, and I know you don't have like a literal like a piece of paper with all everything that they
Yeah.
give you, but what kind of stuff does World Vision actually provide for church leaders to run the event? Like, is there some kind of like, kit or something that they can just say, oh great, I printed this thing and now I can get going? Tell the world, what kind of stuff do they have for you?
Yeah, so I think the event is as big or as small as you want to make it. So I know our NGLers were last year dead set on making it an overnight event where they showed up at I think like 7 or 6 p.m. and didn't leave until I think the fast ended. We ended it at 7 p.m. the next night. And then had a meal, church common meal where we invited rest of our church in. It does not have to be all in. The youth really wanted to do it, so they made it happen. And so it really you can mold it to how you'd like it to go. We've done so many different versions. We've partnered with other churches in the Moncton area in the past. We've included like a service opportunity in the past. Last year we had some worship opportunities. It really, you create the event how you want and what you're able to realistically do.
Right.
As for the resources that World Vision provides, I actually think Lydia is more aware of that because she was the one on World Vision's website last year, diving into that.
Do you remember what kind of resources were provided for the event?
Yeah, well, I can remember I found lots of information regarding the backstory and the reasoning and reasons why to donate and to support this cause. That was incredibly helpful for our fundraising side of the event, just to put into words the experience of others. And that was just a weight off my shoulders that it was already sort of given in a way. And we could just add our own little like personal experiences or personal touches to it for our church.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Also just seeing the Instagram posts that I'd be able to just repost or draw inspiration from. And I remember back to when I was in grade 6, we didn't use these last year, but back when I was in grade 6, there were some videos and devotionals going through the 30 hours. And that's also exciting that just right through the 30 hours, you can find resources and videos, sharing experiences from others around the world. So all those different resources that I've just seen over my years, really help when it comes to creating one of these 30-hour famines and making it run smoothly and taking the weight off some student leaders and also their mentors.
That's so good. You know what? Taking the weight off student leaders, I'm like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, it is an important responsibility and a duty to serve in youth ministry. And then, so I think that any opportunity where it's like, actually, I'm going to do this part for you. So World Vision's handed you this and now run with it. And then they can actually say, we're actually going to do, did you say like literally an overnight event? I'm pretty sure what I did was we called it a lock-in back in the day. And so we actually did it in the church basement. We had like a whole setup and we made posters and stuff like that. You also mentioned, Julianna, service opportunities. Was there opportunities to do like things for the community? Is that what you're referring to? Or are you talking about specifically at the church?
Yeah, so there was at least 1 year, maybe 2 or 3, but only one that I was involved in, where we actually went out and partnered with other organizations within the community. We actually targeted the year I'm thinking of, two shelters that were providing lunch, and we actually went and helped serve and prepare those meals during the Saturday morning, I believe, of the famine. And that was a really interesting experience because at that point, people were approaching 24 hours without food, but going and preparing a food for, I think it was Harvest House and another facility here. So that was really, really cool. And then to debrief that afterwards.
Yeah, of course. Wow, my goodness. And then people look forward to it the next year. They're like, oh man, like it was so hard, but I overcame something. And man, that's so cool. Well, I appreciate so much you having the opportunity to share with us your experience for the 30-hour famine, but also I would love, is there anything left on your heart as far as like an impactful moment that you had at the 30-hour famine, whether you were leading it or you were a part of it, that you can share with our listeners? Let's go with Lydia, since it was like last year.
Yeah, so especially last year, just something that comes to mind is the morning we slept over at the church, and by the morning we were all just like really feeling the hunger, and you've gone through the night and now you're in the final stretch. And there was a lot of us really feeling the hunger, and still such positivity from these students, and such like motivation, and they were all determined to finish this, see it through. We had all of our students complete the 30-hour famine, and it was just a really great time. And especially because they just woke up and they were like, you know what, we're hungry, but it's okay and it's good. And this is what we're here to do, and this is what we're here to experience and learn about and grow from. And it was so impactful for me to see that growth and see that moment. And to experience that moment too, just to be like, you know what, I'm pretty hungry right now, but that's good, and that's what we're here for, and that's what we're here to learn about, and that's what we've been fundraising for months. So it was just a really cool moment, that I think probably happens almost every 30-hour famine for a group of students, which is just incredible to know that there's so many other people experiencing this depth and this moment of like realization and just positivity and like motivation.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And Julianna, how about you?
Well, I was actually going to say the same thing as Lydia. I had deep reservations about doing an overnight event. My high school cohort banished those because we wanted to get a full night of sleep, because we're already very tired or very hungry, and already that makes you tired. And so the idea of sleeping on church floors seemed like a bad idea. And so I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was nervous going into that weekend of how people were going to react and respond when we got to hour 30, if they hadn't slept and hadn't been eating. But they blew me away with just how positive they remained. There were some funny moments of people not being able to complete sentences. I'm speaking of myself here, but it was all so positive, and really they dug in. And that paired with, they also last year set a really ambitious fundraising goal. We've done fundraisers in the past, and they, I think, set a goal that was twice as much as anything they'd raised in the past. And I don't know if this is true for all students, but I know our group sometimes struggled with the fundraising aspect, the awkwardness of asking people for money. But I watched them as we were leading up to that really lean into that, and they raised more money than they ever had before. And so that was really cool to see how they leaned into that process and took those steps outside of their comfort zone for that. So
wow, that is awesome. Wow, a record-breaking year. Let's call it that.
Well, for them,
yeah, honestly, yeah.
Our NGL group was started 15 years ago with the biggest year I think we've ever had, but this group was definitely coming in second, real hard.
Wow,
so
still, that's amazing. That's
it was
literally
amazing. Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you so much, Julianna. Thank you so much, Lydia, for stopping by Today's Teens Pod. For those of you who are listening, friends, todaysteens.ca is where it's at. Head over, make sure you get your tickets. And if you're listening to this after the conference, well, then prepare for the following year, because it happens every single year. We've been doing it for 40 years and we're not stopping. We're not slowing down. So we'll see you there. And for Julianna and Lydia, thank you so much for stopping by. And when I'm in the East Coast, I already told Dave early on in the pod, I was like, if I'm on the East Coast, I'm going to check in with you guys and say hi and get to that magnetic mile. I still don't quite understand what it is, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm like, am I going to get stuck to the road because of my gold boots? I don't know. But I will be there. So thank you so much for stopping by. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week. Bye.